Some countries, like members of the AES, have been working hard to break the bonds of colonialism, but there are others in Africa that are forging deeper ties with imperialists and colonialists. It seems the leaders of these African countries are content with remaining as puppets for the West. We are talking about Kenya, which announced recently that it would host the FranceAfrica Summit, coming up in 2026. Isn't it curious that at a time when African countries are breaking away from former colonial powers, Kenya is on the other side building a strong bridge connecting with colonialists? The question is why? Why has Kenya decided to host the FranceAfrica Summit? What is the purpose of the summit, and will members of the AES attend? Let's find out. The just concluded 79th United Nations General Assembly held in New York had many major highlights, one of which was the announcement made by Kenyan President William Ruto and French President Emmanuel Macron during the Paris Pact for the People and the Planet Coalition Leaders Lunch. According to both presidents, Kenya would host the FranceAfrica Summit coming up in 2026. The FranceAfrica Summit is a 3-year conference that brings together heads of state and government, civil society representatives, and private sector leaders to discuss and advance reforms of international financial institutions and governance systems. According to the official statement, the upcoming summit will focus on addressing the planetary crisis and usually bring together African youth to discuss their problems. It is also aimed at probing and redefining fundamentals of the Africa-France relationship by responding to the problems and expectations of young people. Now, the major thing that makes the 2026 FranceAfrica Summit different is the fact that it would be the very first time that an African country would host the summit. In fact, it would be the first time any African country would host a summit that involves the whole of Africa and one foreign country. If you recall, all the other one-country Africa summits, including the Italy-Africa Summit, the US-Africa Summit, the Russia-Africa Summit, and even the South Korea-Africa Summit, were all held outside the continent. It's no wonder that the Kenyan government is very excited that it is hosting the FranceAfrica Summit for the first time. But is it something to be excited about? The answer is no, and that is because this ought to be the norm. One foreign country cannot organize a summit that involves Africa and invite all the African leaders to drop everything to attend the summit outside the African continent. It has never made sense, and it is baffling why African leaders have allowed it to go on for so long. But the question is, why did France agree for Kenya to host the summit? This is a very valid question, because one of the major reasons why this kind of summit is held outside Africa is because it is a form of intimidation and superiority tactic employed by foreign countries on African leaders. So, again, we ask, why did France agree for Kenya to host the summit? Well, the official statement given by the State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed says that the move for Kenya to host the conference that has traditionally been held in France or its former colonies signals expanding relations with French authorities. He also added that it is a testament to Kenya's growing global leadership and influence. In his own words, "This is a historic milestone for Kenya and a reflection of our continued role as a leader in global conversations around climate action and financial reform. The summit will provide an opportunity to spotlight Africa's role in driving global solutions, and Kenya is proud to be at the forefront." However, in our opinion, one of the reasons why France decided to host the summit in Kenya is in order to mend the fraying relation it has with Africa. As you are very much aware, France has received the most hits by African countries in recent times. In fact, anti-West sentiments began with anti-French sentiments, which began to spread across former French colonies in the last few years. Members of the AES Confederation, which used to be strong allies of France, have cut off diplomatic relations and kicked out French forces. These countries have accused France, of which France is guilty, of imperialism and paternalistic attitudes in dealing with them. So, hosting the FranceAfrica Summit is an attempt by France to come down from its high horse and be on the same level as African leaders. Secondly, Kenya was chosen to host the summit because, out of all the African leaders, Kenya has proven to be a very dependable ally of the West. When other countries ditched the West in favor of Russia, Kenya did the opposite. Under the leadership of President Ruto, Kenya has become a friend of the West, despising its enemies such as Russia and supporting its friends, such as Israel. Interestingly, Kenya was among the few African countries that didn't attend the Russia-Africa Summit. In addition, when the US asked for a volunteer who would help lead the mission in Haiti, President Ruto was the first to volunteer. It is no surprise then that Kenya became the first African country to be granted the status of a non-NATO ally. This means that France could trust that Kenya is on its side, and that is why President Macron chose to host the summit in Kenya. In simple terms, France is just using Kenya to fulfill its interests. But does the authority in Kenya see it this way? Well, the answer to that is not clear, but what is clear is the fact that the Kenya government sees it as an opportunity. According to the Kenya spokesperson, hosting this summit not only enhances our diplomatic stature, but also places us at the heart of shaping the future of Africa-France relations. We look forward to welcoming the world and building on our shared goals for a better planet. He further added that hosting the Africa-France Summit is a significant milestone for Kenya, positioning the country as a key player in global diplomatic and environmental efforts. It also underscores the evolving dynamics of Africa's relationship with France, extending beyond traditional Francophone ties. Now, here is the most important question. What is the reaction of members of the AES, and will they attend the summit? Well, firstly, the leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have not responded to this announcement, and it's most likely that they would never respond. I mean, they have got their hands full trying to deal with lots of things going on in their countries. But given their past actions toward France in the West, it is safe to assume that they would not attend the FranceAfrica Summit. Unlike some African countries such as Kenya and Senegal, which are still interested in forging deep ties with France, the leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have made it clear that they have had enough of France and the West. These leaders believe that France doesn't have the interests of their countries at heart, which makes a lot of sense. Think about it. Despite the decades of deep ties with France, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, as well as the majority of the Francophone countries, remain amongst the poorest countries in Africa. Not only were they underdeveloped and poor, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have been suffering from insecurity that necessitated the presence of the French military. However, France's military presence, together with its sophisticated weaponry and intelligence, didn't solve the crisis. Instead, with every passing year, the situation got worse. The terrorist network grew bigger, and ordinary citizens suffered, all under the watchful eyes of France. The only thing France succeeded in doing was ensuring that its allies were leaders of these countries. So, from the perspective of the military leaders of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, there really is no point in continuing any relationship with France. This means that they probably would not attend the FranceAfrica Summit, whose major aim is to build deep relations with African countries. Now, is Kenya doing the right thing? The answer to that is a big no. Historically, France hasn't done any good thing for Africa, so hosting the FranceAfrica Summit is actually a betrayal to the works of those fighting for complete independence. We understand that the world is a global village, and countries need each other to survive. However, to keep on doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is madness. The truth of it all is that Africa needs partners, yes, but Africa doesn't need Western partners. For more than 100 years, the West has been the major partner of Africa, and the current state of the continent is the outcome of that partnership. So, it makes a whole lot of sense that it's time for Africa to find new partners that will work based on mutual benefit. This is what the members of the AES are doing by partnering with non-Western countries. If things are to change, then Africa needs to change its approach as well. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.